Exactly, yeah,
There you go.
yeah, yeah.
We just had these idiots do ours, so, with the county.
Which one you think is a better one?
I don't think we should do any of them. Why not take that money and just give it to the employees and be done? Because what if it comes back and says they're substantially underpaid?
Well, yeah,
Then what? And then what if they say the council's substantially underpaid?
well,
So
I could,
maybe I'm on board for this.
yeah, yeah. But isn't this basically just a work study to look at our program, what we're paying, and what the designated duties or responsibilities of each,
Yeah. Well, they'll do
of each group?
job description.
If we get all done, we might end up paying a lot more money because we're too low on salary.
The guys, got 14%, the guys I work with.
Well, assuming the county does the same thing, must go through.
They did all the jobs
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
county.
Yeah. Is it plus? I don't know.
Like I said, that's why we be careful what we wish for, 'cause
Easy buck for somebody.
hey, they're gonna do the council, they're gonna do the whole thing.
You want?
They're gonna do the council, they're gonna do all the job descriptions.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
they're gonna price their own area, find out how much they're getting paid.
Yep.
And you know what's gonna happen?
No, that's, I know. You know, but is it something that we have to do?
We'll now call the meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now introduce Scott Johnson, our Benton County Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for squeezing me into your agenda this evening. I'll make this short and sweet. Purpose of my visit tonight is I wanted to publicly thank the city, especially Sarah. Her and the mayor invited me to a brief meeting a few weeks ago in regards to the early annexation agreement. I learned a lot from that meeting, and as you well know, another public informal meeting came out of that with such really good attendance from, I believe, a lot of residents from the Gilmanton Township Board. I believe most of the city officials were here also. Your city attorney, township attorney, myself. I want to thank Roxanne Achman from the Department of Development for the county, and a big shout out to Amanda Othout. She was also here to be able to answer questions. It was just a great opportunity, I think, to open it up for the residents of Gilmanton to be able to ask some questions about the OIA agreement. So that's the purpose of being here tonight. I wanted to say thank you for that. I think it's going to be a great move, and hopefully we can get this thing over the finish line. Really looking forward to the city and the township working together. So please let me know if there's something else I could do to help with that. But good luck to you, and I really hope we get this over the finish line. And thank you, Sarah, too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
We will now have some discussion on the orderly annexation agreement. Everyone should have the revised copy in front of them. And do we have any discussion on it? Oh, well, we'll let Sarah in on this.
Don't forget Sarah.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Council, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
I just wanted to bring to your attention, I did provide you with the red line version of the agreement so that you can see the changes. Most of those changes were discussed at the community meeting last week. And also wanted to bring your attention, this came later today, which is, a map that our city engineer prepared that shows you that solar buffer and what that would look like. Much better than my drawing from last week. So, wanted to make sure you were aware of that. The big things with the agreement are the solar, setback or buffer of 500 feet. And then also just some other changes, regarding some of the county standards. I think it's pretty straightforward. There were a couple things just to align with the county code that we wanted to make sure were done. This has been sent to the township, but at this point we have not received comment back from them. However, I don't think any of these items will be surprising to them. I can take any questions you have, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood those changes and where we're at. We do hope to present this to the town board on March 9th.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Sarah on this? Well, can we get a motion to adopt the revised orderly annexation agreement and joint planning agreement with Gilmanton Township?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now move on to Foley Fun Days with Juanita Beaucamp will speak here.
Well, I want to thank you for adding me to the agenda and having me here tonight. So I am here to see or request the use of the streets for Foley Fun Days, which is June 21st through the 23rd. Right now we are going on with plans, but keep in mind we will be enacting any protocols or anything that is in place by the governor, if there is anything in place for Foley Fun Days.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for her?
I make a motion?
Okay, motion has been made. Any second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to allow the street use for June 21st through 23rd, 2021 Foley Fun Days. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. And I would like to say thank you to Sarah and Monica and Mark for all their work that they've helped us with Foley Fun Days in the past, and hopefully everything for this year too. Thank you.
Okay, at 5:37, we will recess the regular city council meeting to conduct a public hearing on the proposed zoning ordinance amendment regarding menu boards. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Okay, it's 5:38. We will reconvene the regular city council meeting. And I'd like a motion adopting ordinance 454, amending the zoning ordinance as it relates to menu boards.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a question. I don't know if I'm on. Did the planning commission okay this?
Yes, so we did.
Okay, that I didn't know, that's all.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now have open forum. If there is anyone wishing to speak on any matter dealing with the city, we ask that they please come up to the podium up front there, state their name and address, and what their concern or problem is. Okay, no one is here. We will move on to department reports. Police Department, Katie McMillan.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, nothing much really from the police department tonight, other than our stat report for the month of February. Short month, but we still had 257 calls for service. Agency assists were down, welfare checks / medicals and gas drive-offs were up. Are really the only thing that really sticks out of different from the years prior. Have anything for me? Otherwise, I have nothing for you guys.
Anyone have any questions for Katie? Okay, we'll move on to the city engineer, John Halter.
I'm gonna come to the podium, and I think they're gonna put a map on the screen that I can point at here. Will laser work on there, John? I think it will. Oh, maybe it doesn't.
Oh, I saw it.
You can see it on the wall, but it loses it in the TV screen. Well. Yeah, Jared can maybe point as necessary, but provide a little update on our Trunk Highway 23 project that we're working with MnDOT on. We've got into the design for the sewer extension and water crossing that we discussed a few months ago. But the update I want to provide is a little bit of kind of a bearer of bad news, and MnDOT in the last few weeks has informed us of some additional utility improvements that need to be made for their project. And so what that involves is right now, and I'll try to point, but we have an existing sewer and water crossing that goes at 8th, kind of right through that intersection. It was constructed in 2008, and it's in a casing pipe. But MnDOT's rules and request is that we have to reroute that sewer and water out to the east, new crossing, and back to the west to kind of go around the roundabout instead of through the roundabout. So that's a pretty substantial undertaking, especially with the 2 new crossings and casings. The cost of that with soft costs is about $207,000, so it's substantial. I'll come back to that in a minute. The second piece that MnDOT has informed us is there's a storm sewer that's shown in orange on the screen running along the north side. That's an existing storm sewer, and it's kind of under the proposed new curb and gutter that MnDOT's planning to build, and so they're requesting / requiring us to shift that or reconstruct that, maybe roughly 10 to 15 feet to the north. Kind of 2 reasons there. Number one, they need a place to put their storm sewer for their roadway, and number 2, if we ever need to go in and do some maintenance or repairs, they want us to be able to dig down and replace that storm sewer without cutting into Highway 23. So that's the reason they're asking us to relocate that. That 36-inch, and it's a large storm sewer, so gets a little bit spendy. That's about $120,000 to relocate that. So, you're looking at about $330,000 of utility improvements that we, weren't necessarily expecting until we get into the nitty-gritty, and MnDOT has, in the last 2-3 weeks, Mark?
Yeah.
Kind of dropped that on us. The one thing, there's still a couple of moving parts here. The storm sewer piece of it, it's actually a storm sewer outfall pipe from the school's ponds. And so there might be an option for, it probably handles some city stormwater, but also largely is for the school district stormwater discharge. It is owned by the city because back when that was put in, MnDOT didn't allow the school to own a pipe in their right of way, so the city kind of took ownership just to get that done. But there might be a scenario here where we look to the school to help us with that relocation cost, because really it's their pipe more than ours. And then the other moving part here is, I talked about that $207,000 to reroute the sewer and water around the roundabout. This one, we had a meeting with MnDOT as recently as yesterday afternoon, so a lot of this is still kind of hot off the press. We talked to them about trying to leave that in place and not spending that $207,000. And the reason for that is it's a 2008 pipe, so it's in the life of a utility system, that's a very new pipe. And it's already in a casing, so if we ever needed to maintain that pipe, we're not digging in the roundabout to do that. So, to this point, at the district engineer level, they're not capable of allowing that to stay in place, but they did provide us with an opportunity. We can write an exception letter that they'll route to their central office, kind of to the higher ups for approval. And so I think Mark and Sarah and myself over the course of this week will be drafting a letter to ask for that to stay in place. But those are two obviously big changes to the scope of this project that we weren't expecting. The rest of the project is moving along quite well. The concept of extending the sewer in the south ditch over to Lord Avenue and a crossing of the water main at Lord Avenue, those things are basically what we had talked about and planned at the start of this. It's these rerouting around the roundabout and then the storm sewer shift that are kind of the wild cards that MnDOT has shared with us in the last week or two. And again, there's still a few moving parts, but I wanted to update the council on that and certainly provide an opportunity to ask any questions if you had that.
Is the green existing?
The green is the green sewer
Yeah.
on the south side. That is new sewer. That's new sanitary sewer.
So how deep is the one underneath the roundabout?
Jared, do you know that offhand? I'm gonna guess it's in that 18 to 20 feet range.
20-ish, 23, I think.
Deep.
Over 20.
Deep.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what we're tying into.
Yep. I know that the sewer extending in the south ditch is that 18 to 20 feet deep, so presumably that north extension is as well.
And they're concerned about this.
'Cause it's in the driving lane of.
What they're telling us is they want to see the footprint of the excavation not touching the circle of the roundabout, if you will. And practically, the argument that Mark and Jared and I are making with them via emails and via our meeting yesterday is that it's in a casing pipe. So really, if we're ever gonna maintain it, we're gonna dig a hole on either side of the roundabout, not in the roundabout, pull the pipe out and replace it or whatever you need to do. But, as you can imagine, MnDOT's got their kind of rules and standards and, they're giving us the opportunity to kind of, quote unquote, apply for a variance via this, letter that we'll write. And we'll certainly do that, but it'll probably take a couple of weeks to get resolution on that, and we don't know what that answer is gonna be just yet, so.
So are they shutting down the whole 23?
That is still up in the air, in their design process. They did share with us their plan at the moment is, I know from 9th Avenue to the roundabout is gonna be closed, I believe, didn't they say that?
9th to 6th.
9th to 6th is gonna be closed to do that work all at once with the detour route. Honestly, they didn't really share those details with us in a lot of depth, and I'm not sure they have that fully planned out just yet, but.
When they do if I may, John, when they do the culvert out by Lord 13th, that'll be a complete shutdown there for that time.
For about a week, yeah.
When they do that.
So they detour them on 4?
Yes.
How far to the east did they want us to move that line?
Well,
200 feet.
yeah, they want us to reroute it out and around the driving lane of the roundabout essentially, but that ends up triggering that whole orange pipe at the north end. There's 2 runs
Yeah,
that need to be replaced because of that.
yeah.
So, like I said, it snowballs. Once you move it, then you gotta go back and connect to all the various parts and pieces and, so it kinda snowballs a little bit. Now, like I said, I think we have a pretty valid argument of leaving it in place, but we'll see where that lands here in a couple of weeks.
So that walking path is gonna be on the south side of the ditch?
I believe the walking path, that's on the north side.
That's right up, yes.
Trails on the north
Where's
side.
it gonna be in perspective of the road and the ditch now?
On the road side of the bottom of the ditch.
On the north side, I believe
Okay.
it's a grass boulevard, 6-8 feet wide or something like that, and then your trail.
Yep.
I don't know those details quite as intimately, cause that's MnDOT's design,
Kind
but.
of see the trail on the north side running. Basically, the outside edge of that trail is where that red new alignment for that storm is.
Okay.
So like I said, next steps, we'll apply for that letter, write the letter to ask for the variance, we'll see where that goes. They thought a couple of weeks, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, something like that time frame to get an answer back. And then on the storm sewer pipe, I think that probably is a valid need to relocate that, but then that's where, we might want at a city level think about approaching the school and helping in that cost. It's their pipe more than the city's, so. And actually, on that front, MnDOT had shown and originally requested a lot more of that pipe get moved, and we kinda were able to skinny that up and shrink the scope of that down just to, I think, meet their need and intent, but minimize the cost of it, of course, cause it.
So is it this year or next year when they're even gonna start building on this?
2022 construction, so
We're a little bit
they're
away.
approaching a 90% design, but then it goes through, months of review and the bidding process, presumably this fall, and then construction in 2022. The other piece of this, and I don't have a map, but I'll just throw this out there, and MnDOT, right now, their scope of their project ends at the east side of the Broadway intersection. There's some chance that they expand that and do the whole intersection of Broadway, kind of ped ramps and drainage improvements might dictate they do the whole intersection. If they do that, that provides us the opportunity to, we've got a utility improvement, we need to replace those pipes under that road. We were planning to do that via jacking and boring in a couple of years with the Broadway project. If they do in fact do that whole intersection, Mark and I have talked, and we've got some sketches put together that I think it would make sense for the city to replace that with this project where we can open cut it. Much less, probably 50% the cost to open cut versus jack and bore, so. But at the moment, MnDOT isn't doing that whole intersection, but know that conversation is happening too.
What are you looking at a time factor and completion of the whole project? Any idea?
MnDOT did not share their.
So one season,
Yeah, okay, did they?
yeah. Wouldn't start till like, after school.
Looking at the scope of this project, if they're doing it one season, it means it's gonna be the better part of the probably going right up till, early November or something like that. This is a large project, so. Not hearing any other questions, like I said, we'll keep moving forward with that variance, and then ultimately, we'll prepare the plan for the utility work that just gets tucked into the back end of MnDOT's plan and bid as their larger part of the project. We'll get much better bids and one contractor and coordinating and scheduling. So ultimately, our work will be tucked in and bid with MnDOT's large project, so. Okay, we'll keep you updated maybe next month on what we hear back on that variance.
Work hard on the state to get them to leave it go.
I agree, and like I said, I think we got a strong argument, but that's your city engineer speaking and not MnDOT.
In your hands, John.
Thank you, John.
We'll now move on to Public Works and Fire Department, Mark Pattenfuss.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, good evening. I don't have a lot either. John covered all the Highway 23 stuff, sewers later. Pool, I'll cover some of that for Sarah. We are working towards opening that this year, unless the governor changes something. Right now we're allowed to. Our manager from last year, 2 years ago, is planning on coming back at this time. Sarah and I will be meeting with her 2 weeks from yesterday on the 15th. And our assistant manager from last year will also be coming back, is planned to this year. So, like I say, if you guys are good, we're gonna move forward with opening pool this summer and with whatever restrictions there are, but we do, get that going. So, the coping is the plan to just still, hopefully get an early spring and maybe get that done in early May. That is, remember we approved that last fall to do all the coping.
Yeah.
So that is on the books too. I haven't heard anything on that, but it still is a plan for sometime, hopefully early May, and to get that done. Other than that, unless you have questions, I don't know if there's anything else that needs to come up this month yet.
Last year, we talked about opening up the pool, but with the regulations that were in place, it didn't seem feasible. So if those regulations are still in place,
They've loosened what it was last year. Pools
Okay.
can, like the school's having lessons and has pool open. And Sarah, if you can hear me, jump in. But that is all, it is loosened up. There's a capacity limits and all that, but
yeah, okay.
it, remember last year he did it so late? We had to
Yes.
make the decision, we drew the line.
Yep.
And a week later, he said, oh, you can have 25, 50%, whatever it was.
Yep.
So, that's one reason that we didn't either last year, so.
I can add to that too, that's, some of the items that our pool manager is looking into at this point. Consulting with the school and some other aquatic places to get a handle on what the regulations will be. But we do have a bit more clear guidance, at this point than we did last year when we were trying to make that decision. So I do think there is a way we can make it happen, assuming nothing, gets worse in the situation.
Then along with that, parks, we will be moving towards opening them, renting them this year. I know the ladies are already taking reservations on them. So, the new play structure here is is here for Holdridge. So, you know, that'll get put up in May or whatever. I can't remember what our date is. But, all that stuff is gonna move forward with, if you guys are fine. I mean, not to mean we gotta move on and.
Like last year, we had all that trouble just to save the city some money. Are we gonna keep like the bathrooms locked in those parks? Cause there was so much damage last year.
We'll have to have a discussion on that. I mean, I'd hope I could find some poles or something. We could get some better cameraing out there. I guess this discussion between staff, departments, and we can bring back to you between now and be early May before we, another 2.5 months till we open them, so. Other than that, I don't know if I have anything I need to bring up this month yet. Unless anyone has a question.
Does anyone have any questions for him? We'll move on to administration. Sarah Brunn.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Council, the first item, I'd like to bring up is the compensation study. There are copies of 2 proposals that were in your packet. We did discuss this at personnel a number of weeks back. This is a budgeted item, in the CIP. We actually have 10,000 budgeted for it. But after my discussions with personnel, staff is recommending proceeding with, the proposal by Paul Ness. I have worked with Mr. Ness before in another city, so I do have some experience. His proposal is a bit more cost effective. I think this is important. We haven't had a compensation study done for over 20 years. We need to make sure that our pay structure is competitive with the market, that our job descriptions are compliant, and that we also are making sure that we're constantly making ways to improve, so we attract and retain the best people possible. So I'll take any questions you have at this. We did talk about it at personnel, and I'll let them elaborate too if they'd like to at any point.
Sarah, how extensive are we going here? I mean, just police, tell me how far we're going down the chain here.
Just, we're looking at just full-time. We might look at a bit of the part-time employees, but mostly it's focused on our full-time staff. The compensation, so our step schedule, making sure pay equity, and then job descriptions for those. And I said we're just gonna just glance at some of those part-time positions. A lot of that is really dictated on like minimum wage and stuff, and kind of a different scenario, so it's really focused on full-time.
I see that there's a base cost of $38.30. What do you think the real cost is gonna be? We gonna make some additions to that?
Oh, yeah, I'd say you're looking at maybe a few $100s more. I don't anticipate us having extra meetings for like the personnel. If anything, we would just have maybe a brief conference call. We have a small staff, so when he comes out to do those interviews, that can be done in a day. No, I really think we'll be well within, I'd be surprised we're over 5. And we have 10 budgeted, so I think we'll be well within our budget.
Okay.
And that's why I like, Mr. Ness, because he is, pretty mindful of small cities' budgets and tries to keep that under wraps as much as possible.
Okay.
Any further questions? We need a motion on that, Sarah?
Yes, please, it's capital item.
I'll make that motion that we hire
would
Paul Ness.
Okay, I would second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, my second item is meeting room use. Right now, we're allowing minimal meeting room use, charging a fee, if needed, and it's really only based on meetings that the city's directly involved in. I'm still getting requests, and I think it's because a lot of places are closed down. Now, numbers are better. I'd be comfortable if you wanna open it up a bit more, but I'd ask that we retain that meeting room cleaning charge of $25 just to cover the cost of staff having to go in there and do that. And also keep it contained as far as to when we're open. We don't wanna be paying staff extra time to come in and lock the doors. You know, every once in a while we can make it work if it's a, you know, big meeting, but, I'd like to keep it kind of reeled in a bit longer, but I just wanna know where the council's at with that.
Have you set a capacity for this room if we rent it
Yeah.
out?
Yep, it would be, I would set it at 35 if we'll rent it out.
Okay.
As long as we keep getting paid by the people and we don't get too big of crowds in here, I got no problem with that.
I don't either.
So you're comfortable, but if staff uses some discretion, you know, on what's appropriate and not, and we'll kind of slowly start allowing more and more things to happen, does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that'd be a good idea.
Okay, indirection is all I need on that. So we'll move ahead that way. Couple other items, audit is scheduled for the second week of April. Keep in mind, you may be contacted by letter, or by email, with questionnaires. That's typical during the audit season. If you haven't already, don't be surprised if you get that. They randomly select people to ask those questions. And then also, I wanted to remind you that we are, in an agreement with the county assessor for our Board of Equalization, and that open book meeting, is scheduled for April 20th. I do have a public notice all ready to go. I'm just waiting a bit longer to put that in the paper. But if anybody asks about that process, you can always send them to me. But there is an option for them to make an appointment with the county assessor regarding their valuations. And that's the Board of Equalization process, so just keep that in mind. Other than that, if you have any questions for me, that's all I have at this point.
Anyone have any questions for Sarah? Okay, we'll move on to old business, update on the wastewater project, which Sarah could probably do the best of.
Yeah, I'll take that one too. I think I had mentioned we were meeting with the rate study people with Minnesota Rural Water, and they're still working on that information, so that's still coming. We have a couple meetings tomorrow, one with our engineers and then one with the city of St. Cloud. Still moving forward on finalizing that design and that routing, the pump calculations, all of that. We're a few weeks out from finalizing all that. The resolution I had you pass in the consent agenda just keeps us moving forward with submitting that official application to the Public Facilities Authority and submitting those plans at the end of March. So that was just keeping things moving along. Also wanted to mention there was a question regarding how we fund if PSIG funds don't become available. And we will not know for certain on the PSIG funds until this summer. That would be another resolution in process when we make that application. But I have spoken to Kathy Barrett with the PFA and also our engineers. We do have some options, some leverage funding that we can do, and it's basically issuing a temporary debt service for that time period, where we would be able to bridge that gap until the funding comes through. It's very common, according to Kathy Barrett, it's not anything to be worried about. They do it all the time. If they can't find the funding elsewhere to get us whole right away, they will as soon as it comes through. But they said it's very common for cities to have to do this, and it kind of can take a couple years for things to settle in. So, if you have any other questions on that, I can certainly do some more digging, but I know that was something that was brought up last meeting, and I wanted to make sure, we checked on that.
Any questions for her on that? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to new business. And you should have all gotten in your packets for this discussion on the purchase request of PID 13,076.02, which, if you are wondering, is where we used to have that old house that the city used to own and rent out. Now, we got a letter from Al Pekarik and his girlfriend who are looking to buy that. In my opinion, it is just not the right deal to buy it right now. There's just, our waste pipe will be going right through that area somehow. We aren't sure exactly where yet. And at this time, I just do not think we can afford to sell that land, because we might need it yet, we don't know. Now, does anyone else that read it, did they have any discussion on it?
On the same note, I had conversation with Mark some time ago on the same project, and yeah, he insinuated too that we should definitely wait till after we've got the wastewater project completed before we make any definite decision. So, for right now, I'd say no.
Okay.
I agree with that.
And Mark, have you changed your opinion?
No, I don't think we should sell it at this time till we have a better idea of our future.
Okay.
Any other discussion on it? Well, we will not need to close the meeting because we have already determined not to sell the property. So now we will move on to the discussion on the purchase of that other piece of land that we have been looking at. And per Minnesota statutes, I will have to close the meeting at 6:07.
Make sure there's nobody outside.
At 6:17, we will reconvene the regular scheduled city council meeting. Okay, at this time, I would like to request a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
So this,
Is there something I couldn't see, like a little, something to wet the whistle?